Hi everybody. So this document is available in the Canvas modules. It's just a PDF. It's up to you if you'd like to print it. It's going to make things a little bit easier. But if you don't have a printer, that's totally cool too. You can just handwrite it. This document is purely for convenience, just because I noticed when I would do notes in class that students would be looking up at the board, down at their paper, up at the board, and sometimes they would write down a number wrong, which would throw off the whole problem, of course, right? So this is just for convenience, so if you don't have a printer, don't worry about it. We're going to be working through this document for the next few days, okay? So this is just the first day. And what's different about this section is that up until now in this unit, we've been factoring, which means that we're taking a polynomial, we're breaking it down into two factors, which are just two smaller polynomials. In this section, we have equal signs, which means that we have an equation. And when we have an equation, we're actually going to solve it. Okay, so instead of factoring, how we would simplify it, we would factor it, we would get smaller polynomials. In this section, we'll actually get x equals something, x equals a number. Okay, so that's the difference. That's how you're going to know that you're solving, is if you see that equal sign. So let's give it a try. So we have a quadratic equation in one variable. It's an equation that can be put in the form, and this is just ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are constants. And a does not equal 0. So just in general, to talk about what that means, the ax squared plus bx plus c, that's what we've been doing, right? We just haven't had the equals 0. But normally our a, b, and c are numbers, which is just a different word for constants. And then finally, a does not equal 0, because if a did equal 0, it would totally wipe out that entire x squared part, making it be linear instead of quadratic, okay? So just something squared plus something x plus c equals 0, where we've got numbers. It's all good, okay? So the 0 factor property is the next piece. And what that says is that if ab equals 0, so it's a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0. That's just a fancy way of saying if you have two things that you're multiplying together and you know that the answer is 0, then one of those things is 0. Let's go and try to solve these. For the first one, I have the quantity 2x minus 3 times the quantity x plus 5 equals 0. So we have two things multiplying together that equal 0. So that means one or the other one must equal out to 0, right? So let's go ahead and figure it out. So let's go ahead and set both of these equal to 0. So I'm going to have 2x minus 3 equals 0. So both of my factors are going to be set equal to 0. X plus 5 equals 0. And then we just solve. Okay, so we have a little plus 3. Add 3 to both sides. So I have 2x equals 3. And then next, I would divide. Let me change colors here. To solve for x, I would divide both sides by 2. And for my answer, I would get x equals 3/2. Over here, x plus 5 equals 0. I would subtract 5 from both sides, and I will get x equals -5. So what this means is if you went back to our original equation and you put in 3/2, that would be true. It would end up being 0. If you put in -5, the -5 is a little bit easier to see. Do you see if you stuck a -5 here, you'd have -5 plus 5 is 0, and 0 times whatever this ended up being would equal 0. So we have two solutions. We have 3/2 and -5. Okay, now for problem number 2, we don't quite have the zero factor property ready to go yet. We need to actually factor it first. So go ahead and give that one a try. See if you can factor that and then solve it. Okay, so do that for me. I'm going to actually have you try a few of them here. Let's have you go ahead. Let's do 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so try those 3, see how far you can get, and then I'll go ahead and show you what I got and we'll compare answers. So hit pause, give it a try. All right, so for this number 2 here, I have p squared minus 7p plus 10 equals 0. My leading coefficient is 1, which means I can jump to my shortcut. So I'm going to set that up. Now I have, don't forget this equals 0. A lot of students forget this. You need that, okay? It has to be an equation, so you need that in there. Now I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to 10 and add to -7. And if you want to jot it down, you can. I'll squeeze it in down here. 1 and 10, -2, -5. I'm going to go with that one. Okay, so -2, -5. So I have p minus 2 and p minus 5. Now I can apply the zero factor property because I have 2 things multiplied together that equal 0. So I'm going to have the first thing set equal to 0 and the second thing set equal to 0. And then I just go ahead and solve. So add 2 to both sides. So one answer is p equals 2. And the other answer, if we add 5 to both sides, we get p equals 5. So again, if you were to plug that into our original problem, which is cool because you can check your answer, right? It's awesome. If you plug those both in, you'll get 0 for both answers. So if p is 2 or p is 5, then it equals 0, that whole equation that we have. Number 3, hopefully you had a chance to try it. If not, just hit pause now and give it a try. Leading coefficient is 1. So we can jump to our shortcut. 2 numbers that multiply to 28, but add to 3. I worked this out ahead of time. I got -4 and 7. 2 things multiplied together that equal 0. So it means either the first one is set equal to 0 or the second one is 0. And then we just go ahead and add 4 to both sides. So we get x equals 4. Subtract 7 from both sides. X equals -7. Now in this one, we have a little bit of work to do first. First thing we have to do is get everything over to one side. So with this 12x here, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 12x's from both sides and add 4 to both sides, so that I have 9x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals 0. And I have to do that because this zero factor property only works when it's set equal to 0. So I moved everything over. Now, let's go ahead and factor. My leading coefficient is greater than 1, so I don't get to use the shortcut. So let's go ahead and break apart that middle term. So we have 4 terms. So the 9x squared is going to stay, and the 4 is going to stay. We have to break apart that -12. My a times c is 36. And my b is -12. My factors, if you want to list them out, it's 136, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 5 is not one of them, 6 and 6, and it's going to end up being the 6 and 6. But to get that 12 to be negative, they're going to both be negative. So -6 times -6 is a positive 36, but when combined is a -12. So I have -6x minus 6x Then there's a plus 4. Now we do our factor by grouping. So if I look at the first two, these two here, they have a 3x in common that I could factor out, leaving me with a 3x minus 2. And the second set, I have a minus 2 I can pull out, leaving me with a 3x minus 2. And again, make sure you keep adding this 0 all the way down. Now, our common factor, 3x minus 2, I can pull that up front, leaving me with the quantity 3x minus 2, with our 3x and minus 2 equals 0. Now these are exactly the same, so it would look kind of silly if I did 3x minus 2 equals 0 two times. So I'm just going to do it once. And if we divide both sides by 3 to finish this off, we get x equals 2/3. All right, go ahead and try the next two. And come back when you think you're ready. Okay, we have 18x squared minus 8 equals 0. In this one, we can pull out the greatest common factor first, which would be 2. So I didn't have 2, and then a 9x squared minus 4 equals 0. Let me write that a little bit nicer. There we go. So I'll bring down the 2. Do you recognize 9x squared minus 4? It's two terms with a minus in between, and both of those could be squares, right? So that is a difference of squares, which we'd know would just be that first term. So the 9x squared, we would write the 3x, right? 3x plus 2 and 3x minus 2. All set equal to 0. This 2, if you were to set that equal to 0, that would just look weird because it would say 2 equals 0. So just don't worry about that. What you do want to worry about is the 3x plus 2 equals 0 and 3x minus 2 equals 0, and solve both of those. So 3x equals negative 2, which means x equals negative 2/3. 3x equals positive 2, which means x equals 2/3. And finally, number 6, a lot going on here. I'm going to take this 80 and subtract 80 from both sides. If you want to put the 0 at the end, you can. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to leave it up front. 0 equals 5w squared minus 30w minus 80. Looks like I can pull a 5 out here. And when I do that, I have w squared minus 6w minus 16. We can keep going. I can factor what's in the parentheses. My leading coefficient is 1, so I can jump to the shortcut. Two numbers that multiply to negative 16 but add to negative 6 are going to be a plus 2 minus 8. And we can get that because we knew that our factors were 1 and 16 or 2 and 8. And then to make that be a negative 6w, we would have this negative 8 here. So that would combine to negative 6. And finally, we can go ahead and solve. So again, that 5 equals 0, that wouldn't make any sense if you wrote that out. So we'll just do w plus 2 equals 0 and w minus 8 equals 0, giving us an answer of w equals negative 2 and w equals 8. And there we go. All right, go ahead and turn the page. We've got lots more here to work through. We'll just do the rest of this page for today, and then we'll take a break. Okay, so go ahead and try both 7 and 8. You can take a look at number 9, but it's quite a bit different. So just go ahead and try 7 and 8 and come back when you're ready. All right, so first thing that we want to do is get everything over to one side. So I have x squared minus 5x. I'm going to bring over that 3x, so it's going to be minus 3x. And that negative 16, I would add 16 to both sides. So I'm going to have a plus 16 equals 0. I can combine like terms to get x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 0. Leading coefficient is 1, so I can jump to my shortcut. Two numbers that multiply to 16 but add to negative 4 are a minus 4 and minus 4. Again, it would be silly to write it 2 times, so I'll just put it once. X minus 4 equals 0. Solve for x, we get x equals 4. And that's our final answer. Just one answer for that one. Some of them have 1, some of them have 2. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Now for number 8. This one has a lot going on. Because if we subtract the 2, we won't be able to factor because first we have all this stuff that we have to multiply out. Okay, so let's do that first. Let's go ahead and FOIL. So first, we have p squared, outer minus 3p, inner is minus 4p, and last is plus 12. Then to take care of this 2, let's subtract it over right now. Okay, so subtract a 2 from both sides, so we have minus 2 equals 0. When we combine like terms, we get p squared minus 7p plus 10 equals 0. We can factor. Our leading coefficient is 1, so we can jump to the shortcut. Two numbers that multiply to 10 but add to negative 7 are negative 5 and negative 2. Go ahead and solve. P minus 5 equals 0, so that means p is equal to 5. And p minus 2 is equal to 0, so p is equal to 2. Okay, now these fraction ones, they look kind of scary, right? But I'm going to show you a cool thing that you can do. What we want to do is look at the bottom of each of these fractions. And we're going to try to find the lowest common multiple. Do you remember what that is? Lowest common multiple. So the lowest common multiple, the multiples of 3 would be 3, 6, 9, and so on. The multiples of 6 would be 6, 12, 18, and so on. So the lowest common one is what they both have in common, but the lowest one, which is 6. So we found our lowest common multiple. What we're going to do now, this part, it's going to look messy, but the next step is going to be super clean, okay? So first, let's go ahead and have you rewrite this, but leave some space, okay? Try to make it look like this. 1, 6, x squared, minus, leave a space, 1/3 x equals, leave a space, 4 over 3. Now our least common multiple was 6. Let's write it as 6 over 1 so it makes it nice and clean. I'm going to multiply every single piece by 6 over 1. I can do that because what I'm doing essentially is I'm just scaling up this equation. I'm just blowing it up. I'm blowing every single piece up by 6, and that's totally fine. We can do that. We can blow the whole thing up. Next thing I'm going to do is simplify. Let's look at it this way. 6 over 6, I'm just going to put a giant line through it. 6 over 6 is 1. What is 6 divided by 3? 2, right? So I'm going to put a big line. 6 over 3 would be the same thing as 2 over 1. I'm just going to put a 2 because if I add the 1, it gets pretty messy. You can write it, though, if you want to. It doesn't matter. 6 over 3 again, 2. So now what we have going on is this says 1 times 1 is just 1, x squared. Okay, minus 2 times 1 is just 2. So we have 2x equals, this is saying now 2 times 4, which is 8. And look at that. Isn't that pretty? See, when we multiply by the lowest common multiple, it's just going to totally wipe out our fraction because we scaled it all the way up. Very cool, right? Okay, so go ahead and try to finish solving this one. And then go ahead and give that number 10 a try. See how far you can get. Hit play again when you're ready. All right, so I'll come back over here. I'm going to get everything to one side. So that means I'm going to subtract an 8 from both sides, leaving me with x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. Leading coefficient is 1, so I can jump to my shortcut. Two numbers that multiply to negative 8 but add to negative 2 are going to be a minus 4 and a plus 2. We have two things that multiply out to 0, so that means x minus 4 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. We solve to get x equals 4 and x equals negative 2. Very good. On to this next one. Our lowest common multiple for number 10, what did you get? Lowest common multiple should be 4. And again, that's just because if you list it out, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 4, 8, 12. The lowest one they have in common is a 4. So I'm going to rewrite it with some space. I'm going to multiply every single piece by 4 over 1. Just scaling up my fraction, all my fractions, right? My whole equation's just been blown up. 4 over 2 is really just 2. If you want to put the 2 over 1, that's fine. I'll go ahead and do that one this way. Just in case you like it, it's fine. 4 over 2 again, still 2 over 1. 4 over 4, 1 over 1. Now, this is saying 2 times 3 is 6. X squared equals 2 times 1 is 2 minus 1 times x, just minus x. We want to get everything to both sides. Everything over to one side, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add an x to both sides and subtract a 2 from both sides. And when I do that, I get 6x squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. All right, to factor this, my leading coefficient is a 6, which is greater than 1. So that means I have to go the long way to go ahead and try to factor this. Okay, so I'm going to want to break apart that middle term. A times c is negative 12, and b is 1. Two numbers that multiply to negative 12 but add to 1 are going to be 4 and negative 3. So I'm going to break that apart. I'm going to put the 3 first because it's going to pair nicely with the 6, and I'm going to put the 4 second because it's going to pair nicely with the 2. So minus 3x plus 4x. Now we have our 4 terms, so we do factor by grouping. These first 2, I can pull out a 3x and have left over 2x minus 1 plus 2 times 2x minus 1 equals 0. Common factors at 2x minus 1, leaving me with 3x plus 2 equals 0. Two things that multiply to 0, so I can go ahead and set them both up. 2x minus 1 equals 0, and 3x plus 2 equals 0. Go ahead and solve. So we have 2x equals 1. So for our first one, we have x equals 1/2. Subtract a 2 from both sides over here. Solve for x, we get x equals a negative 2/3. Very good. Awesome. Wow, look at this number 11. So much stuff going on. Okay, so in this one, so many students want to do this. This is bad. Okay, don't do it. They try to go like this. That's only when this is multiplication. Okay, if it's subtraction, that does not work. So don't do that. What you do want to do is this, x minus 2 squared, is x minus 2 squared means x minus 2 times itself. Okay, minus 3x. And hey, while we're here, let's just go ahead and add that 6 to both sides. Go ahead and try to take it from here. So you're going to FOIL out, combine like terms, factor, and solve. Okay, when you're ready, hit play, and then if you end up getting something different than me, just go ahead and hit pause again, and then try to finish it out the correct way. Okay, so each time, so that we're learning how to do this. Okay, this is our last one for today. So go ahead and go, and then hit play when you're ready. All right, so I FOILed out the first part here, and I got x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4. And then I still had left over that minus 3x plus 6. Combine like terms. I see 1x squared. For my x's, I see a minus 2x, a minus 2x, and a minus 3x. So altogether, I have minus 7x. For my whole numbers, I see a plus 4 and a plus 6. So I'm going to go ahead and go with plus 10 equals 0. Now I factor. My leading coefficient is equal to 1, so I can jump to the shortcut. And I'm trying to find two numbers that multiply to 10, but add to negative 7. Negative 5 and negative 2. Two things multiply together that equal 0. So we'll go ahead and set them both up equal to 0. And then solve for a final answer of x equals 5 and x equals 2. All right, that will do it for today. You are super awesome. Good job. See you tomorrow.